Rishi Sunak seems to have basically confirmed everything you wrote in your book. What do you make of his intervention?
Well, I mean, it's no great surprise to me. I wrote the book on it, like you say. I mean, the thing is that back when I was researching that book, advisors to the government, including some of the social scientists on Spy B, so they were the behavioural scientists advising the government on how to nudge us into complying with lockdown, they broke cover to speak to me, to tell me that they thought that the use of fear was unethical, and even used language like dystopian and totalitarian. So Rishi Sunak is saying something that has actually been out there for a while. I wish he'd said it earlier. Also, one of the founders of the Nudge Unit, called Simon Ruder, was in a publication called Unheard, and he said that one of the most egregious things that the government did was to convey so much fear upon the public. You know, this kind of attitude now is coming from multiple sources, but now we have one of the highest ministers in the land confirming that, yes, there was a culture of fear within government which stifled dissent and debate, which was vital at a time of crisis, but in his words, scared the public witless.
Who do you blame for all this, Laura? Do you blame the scientists for their extreme approach to this, or do you blame the politicians for not challenging it enough?
I think it's complex, and I think there's a danger in these times. Everyone's looking at where we are now. We're in a cost of lockdown crisis. The danger is to look for scapegoats and to look for easy answers. And goodness knows there are going to be people who do not want to rehash this, because facing the music is hard. Nobody wants to concede that they supported such damaging policies or even that they cheered them on. But we have to look in a very honest and nuanced way of responsibility lies. Ultimately, of course, politicians were responsible, and I think it was probably a very convenient political narrative at the time to say they were following science. And we mustn't actually let anybody get away with shirking any responsibility. Personally, I think that Rishi Sunak should have spoken up at the time and perhaps resigned to a noisy fanfare, because he would have had the opportunity then to draw attention to what happened. And I want to say something else about extending this scrutiny beyond COVID. Back in 2011, not long after the inception of the Nudge Unit, the Science and Technology Committee noted that there were serious ethical concerns with governments deploying behavioural science, because what that effectively does is change people's behaviour in ways in which they're not aware. There has been no public consultation, there is no public mandate, there is no public permission. When we were frightened in order to comply with the rules, and when nudge is deployed continually from COVID to climate change, it is without the public's consent and consultation.
Do you think this will now be the start of the unravelling of lockdown and people looking into it now that Rishi has broken cover?
I think absolutely. And actually, I think it's going to generate, hopefully, a lot more honesty about the damages of lockdown. It's going to be pretty difficult to avoid with the inflation where it is. But like I say, it's really important to not assume this only happened with COVID. It's happening right now with nudging the public towards net zero goals. We have to be honest about this. The same tools are being deployed. You know, we're living in a world now where everything's colour-coded to let us know whether we're on an amber warning or a red warning. There are reports jointly authored by broadcasters and the Nudge Unit about how to change people's behaviour without them even being aware through TV programming. This has now become really insidious within government, and I really don't think it's any way to run a country, to nudge the population and especially to frighten them into following unpopular policies.